Ahaz was 20 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 16 years in Jerusalem. He didn't do that which was right in Yahweh's eyes, like David his father, but he walked in the ways of the kings of Israel, and also made molten images for the Baals. Moreover, he burned incense in the valley of the son of Hinnom, and burned his children in the fire, according to the abominations of the nations whom Yahweh cast out before the children of Israel. He sacrificed and burned incense in the high places, and on the hills, and under every green tree. Therefore Yahweh his God delivered him into the hand of the king of Syria. They struck him, and carried away from him a greater multitude of captives, and brought them to Damascus. He was also delivered into the hand of the king of Israel, who struck him with a great slaughter. For Pekah, the son of Remaliah, killed in Judah 120,000 in one day, all of them valiant men, because they had forsaken Yahweh, the God of their fathers. Zikri, a mighty man of Ephraim, killed Maaseiah, the king's son, Acrium, the ruler of the house, and Elkanah, who was next to the king. The children of Israel carried away captive of their brothers 200,000 women, sons and daughters, and also took away much plunder from them, and brought the plunder to Samaria. But a prophet of Yahweh was there, whose name was Oded, and he went out to meet the army that came to Samaria, and said to them, Behold, because Yahweh the God of your fathers was angry with Judah, he has delivered them into your hand, and you have slain them in a rage which has reached up to heaven. Now, do you intend to degrade the children of Judah and Jerusalem as male and female slaves for yourselves? Aren't there even with you trespasses of your own against Yahweh your God? Now hear me, therefore, and send back the captives that you have taken captive from your brothers, for the fierce wrath of Yahweh is on you. Then some of the heads of the children of Ephraim, Azariah the son of Johanan, Berechiah the son of Melchiemoth, Jehizkiah the son of Shalma, and Amasa the son of Hadlai, stood up against those who came from the war, and said to them, You must not bring in the captives here, for you intend that which will bring on us a trespass against Yahweh, to add to our sins and our guilt. For our guilt is great, and there is fierce wrath against Israel. So the armed men left the captives and the plunder before the princes and the assembly. The men who have been mentioned by name rose up and took the captives, and with the plunder clothed all who were naked among them, dressed them, gave them sandals, gave them something to eat, to drink, anointed them, carried all the feeble of them on donkeys, and brought them to Jericho, the city of palm trees, to their brothers. Then they returned to Samaria. At that time, King Ahaz sent to the kings of Assyria to help him. For again the Edomites had come and struck Judah, and carried them away captive. The Philistines also had invaded the cities of the lowland and of the south of Judah, and had taken Beth Shemesh, Ajalon, Gederoth, Soko with its villages, Timnah with its villages, and also Gizmo and its villages, and they lived there. For Yahweh brought Judah low because of Ahaz, king of Israel, because he acted without restraint in Judah, and trespassed severely against Yahweh. Tilgath-Pilneser, king of Assyria, came to him, and gave him trouble, but didn't strengthen him. For Ahaz took away a portion out of Yahweh's house, and out of the house of the king and of the princes, and gave it to the king of Assyria. In the time of his distress he trespassed yet more against Yahweh, this same King Ahaz, for he sacrificed the god of Damascus, which he had defeated. He said, "Because the gods of the kings of Syria helped them, I will sacrifice to them, that they may help me." But they were the ruin of him and of all Israel. Ahaz gathered together the vessels of God's house, cut the vessels of God's house in pieces, and shut up the doors of Yahweh's house, and made himself altars in every corner of Jerusalem, in every city of Judah. He made high places to burn incense to other gods, and provoked Yahweh, the God of his fathers, to anger. Now, the rest of the acts, and all his ways, first and last, behold, they are written in the book of the kings of Judah and Israel. Ahaz slept with his fathers, and they buried him in the city, even in Jerusalem, because they didn't bring him into the tombs of the kings of Israel, and Hezekiah his son reigned in his place. In the 17th year of Pekah, the son of Remaliah, Ahaz, the son of Jotham, king of Judah, began to reign. Ahaz was 20 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 16 years in Jerusalem. He didn't do that which was right in Yahweh's, his God's eyes, like David his father, but he walked in the way of the kings of Israel, and even made his son to pass through the fire, according to the abominations of the nations, which Yahweh cast out from before the children of Israel. He sacrificed and burned incense in the high places, on the hills, and under every green tree. Then Rezin, king of Syria, and Pekah, son of Remaliah, king of Israel, came up to Jerusalem to wage war. They besieged Ahaz, but could not overcome him. At that time, Rezin, king of Syria, recovered Elath to Ahaz. And drove the Jews from Elath, and the Syrians come to Elath, and live there to this day. So Ahaz sent messengers to Tiglath-Pileser, king of Assyria, saying, "I am your servant and your son. Come up and save me out of the hand of the king of Syria, and out of the hand of the king of Israel, who rise up against me." Ahaz took the silver and gold that was found in Yahweh's house, and in the treasures of the king's house, and sent it for a present to the king of Assyria. The king of Assyria listened to him, and the king of Syria went up against Damascus and took it, and carried its people captive to Kir, and killed Rezin. King Ahaz went to Damascus, to Tiglath-Pileser, king of Assyria, and saw the altar that was at Damascus. And King Ahaz sent to Arijah the priest, drawing of the altar, and plans to build it. Arijah the priest built an altar, according to all that King Ahaz had sent from Damascus, so that Arijah the priest made it for the coming of the king of Ahaz to Damascus. When the king had come from Damascus, the king saw the altar, and the king came near to the altar, and offered on it. He burnt his burnt offering and his meal offering, poured his drink offering, and sprinkled the blood of his peace offering on the altar. The bronze altar which was before Yahweh he brought from the front of his house, and between his altar and Yahweh's house, and put it on the north side of his altar. King Ahaz commanded Arijah the priest, saying, "On this great altar burn the morning offering the evening meal offering, the king's burnt offering, and his meal offering, with the burnt offering of all the people of the land, their meal offering, their drink offerings, and sprinkle on it all the blood of the burnt offering, and all the blood of the sacrifice. But the bronze altar will be for me to inquire by. Abijah the priest did so, according to all that the king Ahaz commanded. King Ahaz cut off the panels off the base, and removed the basin from off them, and took down the sea from off the bronze oxen that were under it. And put on a pavement of stone. He covered the way for the Sabbath that they had built in the house, and the king's outer entrance to Yahweh's house, because of the king of Assyria. Now, the rest of the acts of Ahaz which he did, aren't they written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Judah? Ahaz slept with his fathers, and was buried with his fathers in David's city. And Hezekiah his son reigned in his place. In the 12th year of Ahaz, king of Judah, Hoshea, the son of Elah, began to reign in Samaria over Israel for 9 years. He did that which was evil in Yahweh's sight, yet not as the kings of Israel who were before him. Shalmaneser, king of Assyria, came up against him, and Hoshea became his servant and brought him tribute. The king of Assyria discovered a conspiracy in Hoshea, for he had sent messengers to So, king of Egypt, and offered no tribute to the king of Assyria, as he had done year by year. Therefore the king of Assyria seized him, and bound him in prison. Then the king of Assyria came up throughout all the land, went up to Samaria, and besieged it 3 years. In the 9th year of Hoshea, king of Assyria, took Samaria, and carried Israel away to Assyria, and placed them in Halah, and on the Habor, the river of Gozan, and in the city of the Medes. It was so, because the children of Israel had sinned against Yahweh their God, who had brought them up out of the land of Egypt, from under the hand of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and had feared other gods, and walked in the statutes of the nations whom Yahweh cast out from before the children of Israel, and of the kings of Israel which they made. The children of Israel secretly did things that were not right against Yahweh their God, and they built high places for themselves in all their cities, from the tower of the watchman to the fortified city. And they set up for themselves pillars and Asherah poles on every high hill and under every green tree. And there they burnt incense in all the high places, as the nations whom Yahweh carried away from before them did. And they did wicked things to provoke Yahweh to anger. And they served idols, of which Yahweh had said to them, "You shall not do this thing." Yet Yahweh testified to Israel and to Judah, by every prophet and every seer, saying, "Turn from your evil ways, and keep my commandments and my statutes, according to all the law which I commanded your fathers, and which I sent to you by my servants the prophets." Notwithstanding, they would not listen, but hardened their neck, like the neck of their fathers who didn't believe in Yahweh their God. They rejected his statutes and his covenant that he made with their fathers, and his testimonies which he testified to them, and they followed vanity and became vain, and followed the nations that were around them, concerning whom Yahweh had commanded them that they should not do like them. They abandoned all the commandments of Yahweh their God, and made molten images for themselves, even 2 calves, and made an Asherah, and worshipped all the army of the sky, and served Baal. They caused their sons and their daughters to pass through fire, and used divination and enchantments, and sold themselves to do that which was evil in Yahweh's sight, to provoke him to anger. Therefore Yahweh was very angry with Israel, and removed them out of his sight. There was none left but the tribe of Judah only. Also Judah didn't keep the commandments of Yahweh their God, but walked in the statutes of Israel which they made. Yahweh rejected all the offspring of Israel, afflicted them, and delivered them into the hands of raiders until he had cast them out of his sight. For he tore Israel from David's house. And they made Jeroboam the son of Nebat king, and Jeroboam drove Israel from following Yahweh, and made them sin a great sin. The children of Israel walked in all the sins of Jeroboam which he did, and they didn't depart from them until Yahweh removed Israel out of his sight, as he said by all his servants the prophets. So Yahweh was carried away out of their own land to Assyria to this day. The king of Assyria brought people from Babylon, from Cutha, from Ava, and from Hamath, and from Seraph Haven, and placed them in the cities of Samaria instead of the children of Israel. And they possessed Samaria and lived in its cities. So it was at the beginning of their dwelling there that they didn't fear Yahweh. Therefore Yahweh sent lions among them, which killed some of them. Therefore they spoke to the king of Assyria, saying, The nations which you have carried away and placed in the cities of Samaria don't know the law of the God of the land. Therefore he has sent lions among them, and behold, they kill them because they don't know the law of the God of the land. Then the king of Assyria commanded, saying, Carry there one of the priests whom you brought from there, and let him go and dwell there, and let him teach them of the land of the God of the land. So one of the priests whom they had carried away from Samaria came and lived in Bethel, and taught them how they should fear Yahweh. However, every nation made gods of their own, and put them in the houses of the high places which the Samaritans had made, every nation in their cities in which they lived. The men of Babylon made Succoth-Benoth, They feared Yahweh, and also served their own gods, after the ways of the nations from among whom they had been carried away. To this day they do what they did before. They don't fear Yahweh, and they do not follow the statutes, or the ordinances, or the law, or the commandment which Yahweh commanded the children of Jacob, whom he named Israel, with whom Yahweh had made a covenant and commanded them, saying, You shall not fear other gods, nor bow yourselves to them, nor serve them, nor sacrifice to them, but you shall fear Yahweh, who brought you up out of the land of Egypt, with great power and with an outstretched arm, and you shall bow yourselves to him, and you shall sacrifice to him. The statutes and the ordinances and the law and the commandments which he wrote for you, you shall observe to do forevermore. You shall not fear other gods. You shall not forget the covenant that I have made with you. You shall not fear other gods, but you shall fear Yahweh your God, and he will deliver you out of the hand of all your enemies. However, they didn't listen, but they did what they did before. So these nations feared Yahweh, and also served their engraved images. Their children did likewise, and so did their children's children. They do as their fathers did to this day. The burden of Babylon, which Isaiah saw, the son of Amos. Set up a banner on the bare mountain. Lift up your voice to them. Wave your hand, that they may go into the gates of the nobles. I have commanded my consecrated ones. Yes, I have called my mighty men for my anger, even my proudly exulting ones. The noise of a multitude is in the mountains, as of a great people, the noise of an uproar of the kingdoms of the nations gathered together. Yahweh of armies is mustering the army for the battle. They come from a far country, from the uttermost part of heaven, even Yahweh, and the weapons of his indignation to destroy the whole land. Wait for Yahweh's day, wail, for Yahweh's day is at hand. It will come as destruction from the Almighty. Therefore all hands will be feeble, and everyone's heart will melt. They will be dismayed. Pangs and sorrows will seize them. They will be in pain, like a woman in labor. They will look in amazement at one another. Their faces will be faces of flame. Behold, the day of Yahweh comes, cruel, with wrath and fierce anger, to make the land a desolation, and to destroy its sinners out of it. For the stars of the sky and its constellations will not give their light. The sun will be darkened in its going out, and the moon will not cause its light to shine. I will punish the world for their evil, and the wicked for their iniquity. I will cause the arrogance of the proud to cease, and will humble the arrogance of the terrible. I will make people more rare than fine gold, even a person than the pure gold of Ophir. Therefore I will make the heavens tremble, and the earth will be shaken out of its place in Yahweh of armies' wrath, and in the day of his fierce anger. It will happen that like a hunted gazelle, and like sheep that no one gathers, they will each turn to their own people, and will each flee to their own land. Everyone who is found will be thrust through. Everyone who is captured will fall by the sword. Their infants also will be dashed in pieces before their eyes. Their houses will be ransacked, and their wives raped. Behold, I will stir up the Medes against them, who will not value silver, and as for gold, they will not delight in it. Their bows will dash the young men in pieces, and they shall have no pity on the fruit of the womb. Their eyes will not spare children. Babylon, the glory of kingdoms, the beauty of the Chaldeans' pride, will be like when God overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah. It will never be inhabited, neither will it be lived in from generation to generation. The Arabian will not pitch a tent there, neither will shepherds make their flocks lie down there. But wild animals of the desert will lie down, and their houses will be full of jackals. Ostriches will dwell there, and wild goats will frolic there. Hyenas will cry in their fortresses, and jackals in the pleasant places. Her time is near to come, and her days will not be prolonged. For Yahweh will have compassion on Jacob, and will yet choose Israel, and set them on their own land. The foreigner will join himself with them, and they will unite with the house of Jacob. The peoples will take them, and bring them to their place. The house of Israel will possess them in Yahweh's land, for servants and for handmaids. They will take captives those whose captives they were, and they shall rule over their oppressors. It will happen in the day that Yahweh will give you rest from your sorrow, from your trouble, and from hard service in which you were made to serve, that you will take up this parable against the king of Babylon, and say, How the oppressor has ceased! The golden city has ceased! Yahweh has broken the staff of the wicked, the scepter of the rulers, who struck the peoples in wrath with a continual stroke, who ruled the nations in anger with a persecution that no one restrained. The whole earth is at rest and is quiet. They break out in song. Yes, the cypress trees rejoice with you, with the cedars of Lebanon, saying, Since you are humbled, no lumberjack has come against us. Sheol from beneath has moved for you to meet you at your coming. It stirs up the departed spirits for you, even all the rulers of the earth. It has raised up from their thrones all the kings of the nations. They will all answer you and say, have you also become as weak as we are? Have you become like us? Your pomp is brought down to Sheol, with the sound of your stringed instruments. Maggots are spread out under you, and worms cover you. How you have fallen from heaven, shining one, son of the dawn. How you are cut down to the ground, who laid the nations low. You said in your heart, I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. I will sit on the mountain of the assembly in the far north. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will make myself like the Most High. Yet you shall be brought down to Sheol, to the depths of the pit. Those who see you will stare at you. They will ponder you, saying, is this the man who made the earth to tremble, who shook kingdoms, who made the world like a wilderness and overthrew its cities, who didn't release his prisoners to their home? All the kings of the nations sleep in glory, everyone in his own house, but you are cast away from your tomb like an abominable branch, clothed with the slain who are thrust through with the sword, who go down to the stones of the pit. Like a dead body trodden underfoot, you will not join them in burial, because you have destroyed your land. You have killed your people. The offspring of evildoers will not be named forever. Prepare for slaughter of his children, because of the iniquity of their fathers, that they not rise up and possess the earth, and fill the surface of the world with cities. I will rise up against them, says Yahweh of armies, and cut off from Babylon name and remnant, and son and son's son, says Yahweh of armies. I will also make it a possession for the porcupine and pools of water. I will sweep it with the broom of destruction, says Yahweh of armies. Yahweh of armies has sworn, saying, surely, as I have thought, so it shall happen, and I have purposed, so it shall stand, that I will break the Assyrian in my land, and tread him underfoot on my mountains. Then his yoke will leave them, and his burden leave their shoulders. This is the plan that is determined for the whole earth. This is the hand that is stretched out over all the nations. For Yahweh of armies has planned, and who can stop it? His hand has stretched out, and who can turn it back? This burden was in the year that King Ahaz died. Don't rejoice, O Philistia, all of you, because the rod that struck you is broken. For out of the serpent's root an adder will emerge, and his fruit will be a fiery flying serpent. The firstborn of the poor will eat, and the needy will lie down in safety. And I will kill your root with famine, and your remnant will be killed. Howl, gate! Cry, city! You are melted away, Philistia, all of you, for smoke comes out of the north. There is no straggler in his ranks. What will the answer of the messenger of the nations? That Yahweh has founded Zion, and in her the afflicted of the people will take refuge. The burden of Moab. For in a night Ar of Moab is laid waste and brought to nothing. For in a night Ker of Moab is laid waste and brought to nothing. They have gone up to Beith and to Dibon, to the high places to weep. Moab wails over Nebo and over Medeba. Baldness is on all of their heads. Every beard is cut off. In the streets they clothe themselves in sackcloth. In the streets and on their housetops, everyone wails, weeping abundantly. Heshbon cries aloud with Eleah. Their voice is even heard to Jahaz. Therefore the armed men of Moab cry aloud. Their souls tremble within them. My heart cries out for Moab. Her nobles flee to Zor, to Eglath, Shalisha. For they go up by the ascent of Luhith with weeping, for on the way to Horonaim they raise up a cry of destruction. For the waters of Nimron will be desolate, for the grass has withered away. The tender grass fails, there is no green thing. Therefore they will carry away the abundance they have gotten, and that which they have stored up, over the brook of the willows. For the cry has gone around the borders of Moab, its wailing to Eglaim, and its wailing to Beer Elim. For the waters of Dimon are full of blood, for I will bring yet more on Dimon, a lion on those of Moab who escape, and on the remnant of the land. Send the lambs for the ruler of the land, from Selah to the wilderness, to the mountain of the daughter of Zion. For it will be that as wandering birds, as a scattered nest, so will the daughters of Moab be at the fords of Arnon. Give counsel, execute justice, make your shade like the night in the middle of the noonday. Hide the outcasts, don't betray the fugitive. Let my outcasts dwell with you. As for Moab, be a hiding place for him from the face of the destroyer. For the extortionist is brought to nothing. Destruction ceases. The oppressors are consumed out of the land. A throne will be established in loving kindness. One will sit on it in truth, in the tent of David, judging, seeking justice, and swift to do righteousness. We have heard of the pride of Moab, that he is very proud, even of his arrogance, his pride, and his wrath. His boastings are nothing. Therefore Moab will wail for Moab. Everyone will wail. You will mourn for the raisin cakes of Kir Hasaeth, utterly stricken. For the fields of Heshbon languish with the vine of Sibmah. The lords of the nations have broken down its choice branches, which reached even to Jazer, which wandered into the wilderness. Its shoots were spread abroad. They passed over the sea. Therefore I will weep with the weeping of Jazer, for the vine of Sibmah. I will water you with my tears, Heshbon and Eleah. For on your summer fruits and on your harvest the battle shout has fallen. Gladness is taken away, and joy out of the fruitful field. And in the vineyards there will be no singing, neither joyful noise. Nobody will tread out wine in the presses. I have made the shouting stop. Therefore my heart sounds like a harp for Moab, and my inward parts for Kir Heres. It will happen that when Moab presents himself, when he wearies himself on the high place, and comes to his sanctuary to pray, that he will not prevail. This is the word that Yahweh spoke concerning Moab in times past. But now Yahweh has spoken, saying, Within 3 years, as a worker bound by contract would count them, the glory of Moab shall be brought into contempt with all his great multitude, and the remnant will be very small and feeble. The burden of Damascus. Behold, Damascus is taken away from being a city, and it will be a ruinous heap. The cities of Aroer are forsaken. They will be for flocks, which shall lie down, and no one shall make them afraid. The fortresses shall cease from Ephraim, and the kingdoms from Damascus, and the remnant from Syria. They will be as glory to the children of Israel, says Yahweh of armies. It will happen in that day that the glory of Jacob will be made thin, and the fatness of his flesh will be made lean. It will be like when the harvester gathers the wheat, and his arm reaps the grain. Yes, it will be like when one gleans grain in the valley of Rephaim. Yet gleanings will be left there like the shaking of an olive tree. 2 or 3 olives in the top of the utmost bough, 4 or 5 in the outmost branches of a fruitful tree, says Yahweh, the God of Israel. In that day people will look to their Maker, and their eyes will have respect for the holy ones of Israel. They will not look to the altars, the work of their hands, neither shall they respect that which their fingers have made, either the Asherah poles or the incense altars. In that day their strong cities will be like the forsaken places in the woods and on the mountain top, which were forsaken from before the children of Israel, and it will be a desolation, for you have forgotten the God of your salvation, and have not remembered the rock of your strength. Therefore you plant pleasant plants, and set out foreign seedlings. In the day of your planting you hedge it in. In the morning you make your seed blossom, but the harvest flees away in the day of grief and of desperate sorrow. Ah, the uproar of many people, who roar like the roaring of the seas, and the rushing of nations, that rush like the rushing of mighty waters. The nations will rush like the rushing of many waters, but he will rebuke them, and they will flee far off, and will be chased like the chaff of the mountains before the wind, and like the whirling dust before the storm. At evening, behold, terror. Before the morning, they are no more. This is the portion of those who plunder us, and the lot of those who rob us. Ah, the land of the rustling of wings, which is beyond the rivers of Ethiopia, that sends ambassadors by the sea, even in vessels of papyrus on the waters, saying, Go, you swift messengers, to a nation tall and smooth, to a people awesome from their beginning onward, a nation that measures out and treads down, whose land the rivers divide. All you inhabitants of the world, and you dwellers on the earth, when a banner is lifted up on the mountains, look, when a trumpet is blown, listen. For Yahweh said to me, I will be still, and I will see in my dwelling place like a clear heat in sunshine, like a cloud of dew in the heat of harvest. For before the harvest, when the blossom is over and the flower begins a ripening grape, he will cut off the sprigs with the pruning hooks. He will cut down and take away the spreading branches. They will be left together for the ravenous birds of the mountain and for the animals of the earth. The ravenous birds will eat them in the summer, and all the animals of the earth will eat them in the winter. In that time a present will be brought to Yahweh of armies from a people tall and smooth, even from a people awesome from their beginning onward, a nation that measures out and treads down, whose land the rivers divide, to the place of the name of Yahweh of armies, Mount Zion. The burden of Egypt. Behold, Yahweh rides on a swift cloud, and comes to Egypt. The idols of Egypt will tremble at his presence, and the heart of Egypt will melt within it. I will stir up the Egyptians against the Egyptians, and they will fight everyone against his brother, and everyone against his neighbor, city against city, and kingdom against kingdom. The spirit of the Egyptians will fail within them. I will destroy their counsel. They will seek the idols, the charmers, those who have familiar spirits, and the wizards. I will give over Egypt to the hand of a cruel lord. A fierce king will rule over them, says the Lord Yahweh of armies. The waters will fail from the sea, and the river will be wasted and become dry. The rivers will become foul. The streams of Egypt will be diminished and dried up. The reeds and flags will wither away. The meadows by the Nile, by the brink of the Nile, and all the sown fields of the Nile will become dry, be driven away, and be no more. The fishermen will lament, and all those who fish in the Nile will mourn, and those who spread nets on the water will languish. Moreover, those who work in combed flax and those who weave white cloth will be confounded. The pillars will be broken in pieces. All those who work for hire will be grieved in soul. The princes of Zoan are utterly foolish. The counsel of the wisest counselors of Pharaoh has become stupid. How do you say to Pharaoh, I am the son of the wise, the son of ancient kings? Where then are your wise men? Let them tell you now, and let them know what Yahweh of armies has purposed concerning Egypt. The princes of Zoan have become fools. The princes of Memphis are deceived. They have caused Egypt to go astray, those who are the cornerstone of her tribes. Yahweh has mixed a spirit of perverseness in the middle of her, and they have caused Egypt to go astray in all of its works, like a drunken man staggers in his vomit. Neither shall there be any work for Egypt, which head or tail, palm branch or rush may do. In that day, Egyptians will be like women. They will tremble and fear because of the shaking of the Yahweh of armies' hand, which he shakes over them. The land of Judah will become a terror to Egypt. Everyone who mentions it, is made of it, will be afraid, because of the plans of Yahweh of armies, which he determines against it. In that day there will be 5 cities in the land of Egypt that speak the language of Canaan and swear to Yahweh of armies. One will be called the City of Destruction. In that day there will be an altar to Yahweh in the middle of the land of Egypt, and a pillar to Yahweh at its border. It will be for a sign and for a witness to Yahweh of armies in the land of Egypt. For they will cry to Yahweh because of oppressors, and he will send them a saviour and a defender, and he will deliver them. Yahweh will be known to Egypt, and the Egyptians will know Yahweh in that day. Yes, they will worship with sacrifice and offering, and will vow a vow to Yahweh, and will perform it. Yahweh will strike Egypt, striking and healing. They will return to Yahweh, and he will be entreated by them, and will heal them. In that day there will be a highway out of Egypt to Assyria, and the Assyrians shall come into Egypt, and the Egyptians into Assyria, and the Egyptian will worship with the Assyrian. In that day Israel will be the third with Egypt and with Assyria, a blessing within the earth, because Yahweh of armies has blessed them, saying, Blessed be Egypt, my people, Assyria, the work of my hands, and Israel, my inheritance. In the year that Tartan came to Ashdod, when Sargon, the king of Assyria, sent him, and he fought against Ashdod and took it. At that time Yahweh spoke by Isaiah the son of Amoz, saying, Go and loosen the sackcloth from off your waist, and take your sandals from off your feet. He did so, walking naked and barefoot. Yahweh said, As my servant Isaiah has walked naked and barefoot 3 years for a sign and a wonder concerning Egypt and concerning Ethiopia, so the king of Assyria will lead away the captives of Egypt and the exiles of Ethiopia, young and old, naked and barefoot, and with buttocks uncovered, to the shame of Egypt. They will be dismayed and confounded because of Ethiopia, their expectation, and of Egypt, their glory. The inhabitants of this coast land will say in that day, Behold, this is our expectation, where we fled for help to be delivered from the king of Assyria. And we, how will we escape? The burden of the wilderness of the sea. As whirlwinds in the south sweep through, it comes from the wilderness, from an awesome land. A grievous vision is declared to me. The treacherous man deals treacherously, and the destroyer destroys. Go up, Elam, attack. I have stopped all of Media's sighing. Therefore my thighs are filled with anguish. Pains have seized me, like the pains of a woman in labour. I'm in so much pain that I can't hear. I am so dismayed that I can't see. My heart flutters. Horror has frightened me. The twilight that I desired has been turned into trembling for me. They prepare the table. They set the watch. They eat. They drink. Rise up, you princes, oil the shield, for the Lord has said to me, Go, set a watchman. Let him declare what he sees. When he sees a troop, horsemen in pairs, a troop of donkeys, a troop of camels, he shall listen diligently with great attentiveness. He cried like a lion, Lord, I stand continually on the watchtower in the daytime, and every night I stay at my post. Behold, here comes a troop of men, horsemen in pairs. He answered, Fallen, fallen is Babylon, and all the engraved images of her gods are broken on the ground. You are my threshing and the grain of my floor. That which I have heard from Yahweh of armies, the gods of Israel, I have declared to you. The burden of Duma. One calls to me out of Seir, Watchman, what of the night? Watchman, what of the night? The watchman said, The morning comes, and also the night. If you will inquire, inquire. Come back again. The burden on Arabia. You will lodge in the thickets in Arabia, you caravans of Dedanites. They brought water to him who was thirsty. The inhabitants of the land of Tema met the fugitives with their bread. For they fled away from the swords, from the drawn sword, from the bent bow, and from the heat of battle. For the Lord said to me, within a year, as a worker bound by contract would count it, all the glory of Kedar will fall, and the residue of the number of the archers, the mighty men of the children of Kedar, will be few. For Yahweh the God of Israel has spoken it. The burden of the valley of vision. What ails you now, that you have all gone up to the housetops? You that are full of shouting, a tumultuous city, a joyous town. Your slain are not slain with the sword, neither are they dead in battle. All your rulers fled away together. They were bound by the archers. All who were found by you were bound together. They fled far away. Therefore I said, look away from me. I will weep bitterly. Don't labor to comfort me for the destruction of the daughter of my people. For it is a day of confusion, and of treading down, and of perplexity from the Lord, Yahweh of armies, in the valley of vision, a breaking down of the walls, and a crying to the mountains. Elam carried his quiver with the chariots of men and horsemen, and Kir uncovered the shield. Your choicest valleys were full of chariots, and the horsemen sat themselves in array at the gate. He took away the covering of Judah, and you looked in that day to the armor in the house of the forest. You saw the breaches of David's city, they were many, and you gathered together the waters of the lower pool. You counted the houses of Jerusalem, and you broke down the houses to fortify the wall. You also made a reservoir between the two walls for the water of the old pool. But you didn't look to him who had done this, neither did you have respect for him who had planned it long ago. In that day, the Lord Yahweh of armies called to weeping, to mourning, to baldness, and to dressing in sackcloth. And behold, there is joy and gladness, killing cattle and killing sheep, eating meat and drinking wine. Let's eat and drink, for tomorrow we die. Yahweh of armies revealed himself in my ear. Surely this iniquity will not be forgiven until you die, says Yahweh, Lord of armies. The Lord Yahweh of armies says, go, get yourself to this treasurer, even to Shema, who is over the house, and say, what are you doing here, that you have dug up a tomb here, cutting himself out of a tomb on high, chiseling a habitation for himself in the rock? Behold, Yahweh will overcome you, and hurl you away violently. Yes, he will grasp you firmly. He will surely wind you around, throw you like a ball into a large country. There you will die, and there your chariots and your glory will be, you disgrace for your Lord's house. I will thrust you from your office. You will be pulled down from your station. It will happen in that day that I will call my servant Eliakim, the son of Hilkiah, and I will clothe him with your robe, and strengthen him with your belt. I will commit your government into his hand, and he will be a father to the inhabitants of Jerusalem, and to the house of Judah. I will lay the key of David's house on his shoulder. He will open, and no one will shut. He will shut, and no one will open. I will fasten him like a nail in a sure place. He will be for a throne of glory to his father's house. They will hang him, all the glory of his father's house, the offspring and the issue, every small vessel, from the cups even to all the pitchers. In that day, says Yahweh of armies, the nail that was fastened in its sure place will give way. It will be cut down and fall. The burden that was on it will be cut off, for Yahweh has spoken. The burden of Tyre. Howl, you ships of Tarshish, for it is laid waste, so that there is no house, no entering in. From the land of Kittim it is revealed to them. Be still, you inhabitants of the coast, you whom the merchants of Sidon that pass over the sea have replenished. On great waters, the seed of Sihor, the harvest of the Nile, has her revenue. She was the market of nations. Be ashamed, Sidon, for the sea has spoken, the stronghold of the sea, saying, I have not travailed, nor given birth, neither have I nourished young men, nor brought up virgins. When the report comes to Egypt, they will be in anguish at the report of Tyre. Pass over to Tarshish. Wail, you inhabitants of the coast. Is this your joyous city, whose antiquity is of ancient days, whose feet carried her far away to travel? Who has planned this against Tyre, the giver of crowns, whose merchants are princes, whose traders are the honourable of the earth? Yahweh of armies has planned it, to stain the pride of all glory, to bring into contempt all the honourable of the earth. Pass through your land like Nile, the daughter of Tarshish. There is no restraint any more. He has stretched out his hand over the sea. He has shaken the kingdoms. Yahweh has ordered the destruction of Canaan's strongholds. He said, You shall rejoice no more, you oppressed virgin daughter of Sidon. Arise, pass over to Kittim. Even there you will have no rest. Behold the land of the Chaldeans. This people doesn't exist. The Assyrians founded it for those who dwell in the wilderness. They set up their towers. They overthrew its palaces. They made it a ruin. Howl, you ships of Tarshish, for your stronghold is laid waste. It will come to pass in that day that Tyre will be forgotten 70 years, according to the days of one king. After the end of 70 years, it will be to Tyre like in the song of the prostitute. Take a harp, go about the city, you prostitute that has been forgotten. Make sweet melody, sing many songs that you may be remembered. It will happen after the end of 70 years that Yahweh will visit Tyre. She will return to her wages, and will play the prostitute with all the kingdoms of the world on the surface of the earth. Her merchandise and her wages will be holiness to Yahweh. It will not be treasured nor laid up, for her merchandise will be for those who dwell before Yahweh, to eat sufficiently, and for durable clothing. Behold, Yahweh makes the earth empty, makes it waste, turns it upside down, and scatters its inhabitants. It will be as with the people, so with the priest, As with the servant, so with his master. As with the maid, so with her mistress. As with the buyer, so with the seller. As with the creditor, so with the debtor. As with the taker of interest, so with the giver of interest. The earth will be utterly emptied and utterly laid waste, for Yahweh has spoken this word. The earth mourns and fades away. The world languishes and fades away. The lofty people of the earth languish. The earth also is polluted under its inhabitants, because they have transgressed the laws, violated the statutes, and broke the everlasting commandment. Therefore the curse has devoured the earth, and those who dwell therein are found guilty. Therefore the inhabitants of the earth are burned, and few men are left. The new wine mourns, the vine languishes, the merry-hearted sigh, the mirth of tambourines ceases. The sound of those who rejoice ends, the joy of the harp ceases. They will not drink wine with a song. These shall lift up their voice. They will shout for the majesty of Yahweh. They cry aloud from the sea. Therefore glorify Yahweh in the east, even the name of Yahweh, the God of Israel, in the islands of the sea. From the uttermost part of the earth have we heard songs. Glory is me. The treacherous have dealt treacherously. Yes, the treacherous have dealt very treacherously. Fear the pit and the snare are on you who inhabit the earth. It will happen that he who flees from the noise of the fear will fall into the pit, and he who comes up out of the middle of the pit will be taken in the snare. For the windows on high are opened, and the foundations of the earth tremble. The earth is utterly broken. The earth is torn apart. The earth is shaken violently. The earth will stagger like a drunken man, and will sway back and forth like a hammock. Its disobedience will be heavy on it, and it will fall and not rise again. It will happen in that day that Yahweh will punish the army of the High One on high, and the kings of the earth on the earth. They will be gathered together, as prisoners are gathered in the pit, and will be shut up in the prison, and after many days they will be visited. Then the moon will be confounded, and the sun ashamed, for Yahweh of armies will reign on Mount Zion and in Jerusalem, and glory will be before his elders. Yahweh, you are my God. I will exalt you. I will praise your name, for you have done wonderful things, planned long ago, in complete faithfulness and truth. For you have made a city into a heap, a fortified city into a ruin. A palace of strangers will be no city. It will never be built. Therefore, a strong people will glorify you. A city of awesome nations will fear you, for you have been a stronghold to the poor, a stronghold to the needy in his distress. A refuge from the storm, a shade from the heat, when the blast of the dreaded ones is like a storm against the wall. As the heat in a dry place, you will bring down the noise of strangers. As the heat by the shade of a cloud, the song of the dreaded ones will be brought low. In this mountain, Yahweh of armies will make all peoples a feast of choice meat, a feast of choice wines, of choice meat full of marrow. of well-refined choice wines. He will destroy in this mountain the surface of the coverings that cover all people, and the veil that is spread over all nations. He has swallowed up death forever. The Lord Yahweh will wipe away tears from all faces. He will take the reproach of his people away from off the earth, for Yahweh has spoken it. It shall be said in that day, Behold, this is our God. We have waited for him, and he will save us. This is Yahweh. We have waited for him. We will be glad and rejoice in his salvation. For Yahweh's hand will rest in this mountain. Moab will be trodden down in his place, even like the straw that is trodden down in the water of a dunghill. He will spread out his hands in the middle of it, like one who swims spreads out his hands to swim. But his pride will be humbled together with the craft of his hands. He has brought the high fortress of your walls down, laid low, and brought to the ground, even to dust. In that day, this song will be sung in the land of Judah. We have a strong city. God appoints salvation for walls and bulwarks. Open the gates, that the righteous nation may enter, the one which keeps faith. You will keep whoever's mind is steadfast in perfect peace, because he trusts in you. Trust in Yahweh forever, for in Yahweh is an everlasting rock, for he has brought down those who dwell on high, the lofty city. He lays it low even to the ground. He brings it even to the dust. The foot shall tread it down, even the feet of the poor, and the steps of the needy. The way of the just is uprightness. You who are upright make the path of the righteous level. Yes, in the way of your judgments, Yahweh, we have waited for you. Your name and your renown are the desire of our soul. With my soul I have desired you in the night. Yes, with my spirit within me I will seek you earnestly. For when your judgments are in the earth, the inhabitants of the world learn righteousness. Let favour be shown to the wicked, yet he will not learn righteousness. In the land of uprightness he will deal wrongfully, and will not see Yahweh's majesty. Yahweh, your hand is lifted up, yet they don't see. But they will see your zeal for the people and be disappointed. Yes, fire will consume your adversaries. Yahweh, you will ordain peace for us, for you have also done all our work for us. Yahweh our God, other lords besides you have had dominion over us, but we will only acknowledge your name. The dead shall not live. The departed spirits shall not rise. Therefore you have visited and destroyed them, and caused all memory of them to perish. You have increased the nation, O Yahweh. You have increased the nation. You are glorified. You have enlarged all the borders of the land. Yahweh, in trouble they have visited you. They poured out a prayer when your chastening was on them. Just as a woman with a child, who draws near at the time of her delivery, is in pain and cries out in her pangs, so we have been before you, Yahweh. We have been with child. We have been in pain. We give birth, it seems, only to wind. We have not worked any deliverance in the earth. Neither have the inhabitants of the world fallen. Your dead shall live. Their dead bodies shall arise. Awake and sing, you who dwell in the dust, for your dew is like the dew of herbs, and the earth will cast out the departed spirits. Come, my people, enter into your rooms, and shut your doors behind you. Hide yourself for a little moment, until the indignation is past. For behold, Yahweh comes out of his place to punish the inhabitants of the earth for their iniquity. The earth also will disclose her blood, and will no longer cover her slain. In that day Yahweh, with his hard and great and strong sword, will punish Leviathan, the fleeing serpent, and Leviathan, the twisting serpent, and he will kill the dragon that is in the sea. In that day sing to her a pleasant vineyard. I, Yahweh, am its keeper. I will water it every moment, lest anyone damage it. I will keep it night and day. Wrath is not in me, but if I should find briars and thorns, I would do battle. I would march on them. I would burn them together, or else let him take hold of my strength, that he may make peace with me. Let him make peace with me. In the days to come, Jacob will take root. Israel will blossom and bud. They will fill the surface of the world with fruit. He has struck them. Has he struck those who struck them? Or are they killed like those who killed them were killed? In measure, when you send them away, you contend with them. He has removed them with his rough blast in the day of east wind. Therefore by this the iniquity of Jacob will be forgiven. And this is all the fruit of taking away his sin, that he makes all the stones of the altar as chalk stones that are beaten in pieces, so that the Asherah poles and the incense altars shall rise no more. For the fortified city is solitary, a habitation deserted and forsaken like the wilderness. The calf will feed there, and there he will lie down and consume its branches. When its bough are withered, they will be broken off. The women will come and see and set them on fire, for they are a people of no understanding. Therefore, he who made them will not have compassion on them, and he who formed them will show them no favor. It will happen in that day that Yahweh will thresh from the flowing streams of the Euphrates to the brook of Egypt, and you will be gathered one by one, children of Israel. It will happen in that day that a great trumpet will be blown, and those who were ready to perish in the land of Assyria, and those who were outcasts in the land of Egypt, shall come, and they will worship Yahweh in the holy mountain at Jerusalem.